Hello and welcome to Anthropic Topic. I'm Datone.
Already on here?
Howdy, I'm TechFlex.
And as always, your boy Warp Kitten.
All right. And today we're going to be getting a little esoteric and maybe even a little psychedelic. We'll see. But we're going to be discussing some of our more, I don't know, spiritual encounters and beliefs. So let's start it from the top. Rion, man. So, have you had any experiences with spirits or demons or anything of that nature?
Sure have.
Really?
Yeah. Used to live in rural middle of nowhere, and a friend of mine at the time had recently kind of found God or whatever, and it was kind of ironic because this particular person was pretty opposed to those kind of things, and just out of kind of just a comical spite, I guess. It was 2010 or something, and I googled satanic Bible or something like that, and found this really weird website where it had a to-do list. I called this person up and just kind of did the mock ritual or whatever it was, and yeah, it ended up being pretty creepy. At the time, when I called this person and did all that stuff, it was almost like you couldn't have planned it better, but the phone cut out, right? It was all this weird background noise and stuff, and yeah, I called the person back and they were super upset with me, and I mean, it was pretty normal from there, but I had actually told a friend about it. This was weeks later, and we were sitting on my front porch smoking cigarettes, and this billowy trash bag fog figure thing kind of just went across my yard, and I was thinking to myself at the time oh, that's weird, I was wondering if I had a relapse from some LSD or something. And I didn't say anything, but the friend that I was with at the time, Matt, kind of mentioned did you see that? And it was pretty intriguing, but I acted like I didn't know what he was talking about to see if he would explain it, to see if he saw what I saw. And he did. He said it was this weird fog thing that passed over. And that intrigued him enough to where afterwards I explained to him that, I went to this weird website or whatever. And so he wanted to do it. And then around that time, we did a little bit more research into it at that time about the script or whatever. It ended up being the Goetia, which is a weird little book that I just kind of happened on by chance in some weird Angel Fire, yeah, that one. Some Angel Fire webpage of 2010, and a lot of weird circumstances happened after that. We we invoked I don't know how many entities, or it gives you instructions hey, draw this symbol and burn these candles and say these words. I mean, we were just completely kind of making fun of it. But yeah, we both had very unique experiences following. A lot of weird things happening in the house. One of the things that really stands out to me, because I mean, this was over a decade ago, I guess, or yeah, was I had prior to this day or whatever that I'm about to explain to you, little weird things would happen, things would be not in the same drawer or whatever, that kind of typical I don't know, kind of thing or whatever. And it's at the frequency that it happened, it was just way too convenient to just be like, you know, I don't know, but like, so, you know, weird noises, stuff like that. Dogs would like be barking at this hallway that was in my house at the time, like just like up in the middle of nowhere, just like really weird stuff. But I'd woken up one morning and I like went to take my, you know, morning bathroom routine or whatever, and as I passed down this hallway, like my room is on the very end, and at the other end was the bathroom, and the door nearest to my room was the basement door, which was like this big, heavy, like oak door with a brush guard on it. It had opened slightly when I had like stepped out of my room, you know, and I'm in the bathroom at this point, you know, doing my thing, and like it was kind of like so off-putting that I like, you know, kind of like took a peek or whatever, and yeah, like the door had opened and there was no one else there. It was just me, and so at that point I thought somebody else was in my house, you know, like. So I got this like little T-ball bat, you know, that I have, my self-defense weapon, and went to investigate, and it was just like really odd because, you know, no one was there. I went in the basement, you know, like everything was locked, all the windows closed, you know, like there you go, yeah, self-defense weapons. But yeah, like went back up, you know, and I was like, I called my mother, and I was like, hey, like, you know, I think someone's like in the house. And she's like, well, just, you know, lock everything back up, blah, 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 you know. And I went to lock that basement door, that heavy door that opened on its own. Like, this wasn't like the wind, you know what I mean? Brush guard, you know, heavy door. When I went to lock the door, it was already locked. So that's one that really, I don't know, really stuck with me.
Well, in case anybody's curious, I do have a copy of the Lesser Key of Solomon right here, also known as the Goetia, or the Book of Evil Spirits. And we're going to go ahead and just we're going to recreate that night. And I've got the preliminary invocation right here. Thee I invoke, the Bornless One. Thee that didst create... No, I'm just kidding. The look on his face. I wish I could show everybody. No, yeah, but that's, wow. So you don't recommend that people go around looking up this book and trying to perform the rituals there within?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, in a way, I would say no, because I mean, there's a lot more stories that I have on that. I mean, it wasn't just me that experienced things. It was like my mother, of course, the friend that did it with me. You know, he was in college at the time, had, you know, tons of weird experiences himself and stuff. But I mean, in a way, I guess it got me in touch with maybe there is something else out there. Because I mean, like I said, when we did these things, these invocations or whatever, it was just completely in like a, like almost just like, you know, it was out of disbelief and it was just boredom, you know. I mean, it all just kind of started with kind of like trampling on a friend of mine's, you know, recent, you know, communication with spirituality or whatever.
Recent conversion. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm grateful for the stories. Some of the experiences I wish I didn't have, you know? I mean,
obviously, yeah.
But, you know, I think it's intriguing in that way that, you know, if I hadn't done it, you know, like, you know, I guess I wouldn't have that in my back pocket. So.
Wow. What about you, Tex Lex?
Oh gosh, I have so many. Which one do you want to hear? Like, do you want to hear my most recent experience, or do you want to hear my early experience?
Let's start off with the most recent, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I won't do the one in Louisiana. That's like too obvious. We'll we'll talk about the time that I went over to my cousin's house and had an experience. So she was feeling down in the dumps, and she asked me to come over and do her hair because I'm a hairstylist. And I went over, and she had roommates at the time, and they had 2 kids, 2 boys, one 14, one 11, and they were like, hey, we're going to go out for a few hours, have a date night. Is it okay if we leave the kids home with you while y'all are doing the hair? And I was like, yeah, that's not a problem. We don't mind. They're teenagers. They pretty much can take care of themselves. We'll just make sure they don't leave the house or burn nothing down, right? And so we're sitting in the kitchen, and we start smelling smoke coming from the living room, the front part of the apartment. And we, automatically go, oh, well, shit, something's going on with the kids. So we go into the living room, and it had a fireplace with a mirror on the mantle, and across from it was the couch where the 14-year-old was sleeping, and the 11-year-old was sitting down watching a movie on a portable DVD player. And the whole room is filled with smoke, and we're asking this 11-year-old, we're like, what did you do? Where is the smoke coming from? And he, I don't know. So we're searching frantically because the smoke's getting worse. And I look in the mirror of the mantle, and in the smoke, I see this figure, and it's pointing to the couch. So I tell my cousin, I tell her, I'm like, hey, we got to move the couch. So we moved the couch where the 14-year-old was, and sure enough, the 11-year-old had found a pack of his dad's cigarettes and had been smoking them and hotboxing them and flicking them under the couch to hide them, and had caught the curtain on fire.
Oh, no.
So when the parents get home, they ask me, they said, how did you find out that the cigarettes, like, how did you guess that? And I said, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Yeah, no, because this was not my first experience. And my cousin knew that because of a situation that happened prior. But, finally they goaded me out of it. And I said, look, there was a figure. And he showed me where to go, in the mirror. And they said, okay, well, describe him to me. And I was like, well, he was a tall guy, like 6'2", shaggy blonde hair, red flannel, just old fashioned redneck, And so the brother goes into his bedroom and comes back out and hands me a picture, and it's the guy in the picture. And I was like, that's him. And he goes, yeah, that's my brother. He died in a fire 6 months ago.
Wow.
What?
That is...
Bro.
And you said you have more of these stories? No.
Yes, I do.
Well, man, between you and Rion, we should be able to, hash out a couple.
Yeah.
I saw.
Wow.
So the reason my cousin was a firm believer is because I saw, her dead boyfriend one time, in middle school. We, long story short, we were playing hide and go seek on a Saturday while we were waiting for the teacher to come, to go to theater practice or whatever. And I'm upstairs, and they have a fire exit. And the fire exit has this big glass door, and you can see outside to the stairs that are outside the building, and it had rafters up ahead. And I'm staring at it, and I'm just kind of zoning out because I'm ADHD. And I get this faint image in my head of a boy swinging from the rafters. And I told my cousin about it, 2 or 3 years later, and she goes and pulls out her yearbook, and there's an in memory page, and she goes, my boyfriend hung himself from the second story rafters back in middle school.
Wow.
Yo.
That's wow.
So I don't know, man. Like I have weird theories about why I see things like that. I don't necessarily believe that they're ghosts. I firmly believe that they are a form of energy that just has not dissipated completely.
Like
right?
Echoes.
Yeah, echoes, like kinesthetic memories is what I call them. Memories that can actually, because I don't believe that time is linear. It's like a whole thing. And we can touch base on that later.
This is a perfectly good time to go into that.
Okay, so just through my experiences, because I've had a lot of them, I feel that time is not linear. I feel like we perceive time to be linear because that's who we are as creatures. That's how our brain functions, is that time is point A, point B, point C, because that's how we personally perceive it through our small and meaningless lives. But I think that energy does not uphold to that linear standard of time. I think that energy can exist all at once in the past, the present, and the future. So when there is a lasting impact, it can manifest that energy into something that can touch base in our reality, whether that be, an echo of the past or an echo of the future. And I believe that's why some people experience deja vu so vividly.
Well, and I've kind of wondered myself because uh so I tend to think about the universe and our path through time in a multiverse type way where it's it's branching out continuously and then it's kind of like a fractal, you know what I mean, where
Yes.
different things are happening at each level, and sometimes there's a recursive loop, or sometimes a thing that happened at one time happened at a different time in a different timeline type deal, and sometimes there might be an almost like an imprint, an overlay, like the all the realms are sharing some sort of similar fabric that it's all diverging from. And as long as the bubble or of the reality that you're diverging from at the moment still exists, still is touching at that moment, at that place, then you can kind of see that mirage, that after effect. But that doesn't explain certain ones that are like, some people talk about like interactable types of events like this. Those are a little bit more difficult to come across, though. I think most of the types of things that I hear about are what you're talking about, like sort of uh, imprints of a traumatic event.
What are they called? Residual hauntings or something? Right?
Yeah.
So I do believe
Like,
Kitten wanted to say something real fast, if she could interject just for a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been doing so good on not interrupting people. I'm actually really proud of myself. That's why I had the camera turned on so I can make a visual cue.
I got
So
you,
two
boo.
things. One, I am possibly in the worst fucking place. Sorry, worst place to be like talking about ghost stories. Like, so I have this thing whenever I'm really tired. It was really bad whenever I was in college, but every once in a while, if I get really really tired and like a little bit stressed out, which I'm not home and it's late, so I'm stressed out, I start to see things, and it is dark enough that my brain is making up shit. And I
oh
know
yeah,
that
we
it's
got
not real, but I'm like watching shit cross the road, and I'm like, fuck, or heck.
it.
Just fix it a warner. Somebody's coming behind you.
Oh man, what a terrifying thing to have to say at that particular moment. There's
It's
someone
really
behind you. You better turn
Yeah,
around right now.
I called it
He
on
was
you
he was
too.
bringing me water. I didn't want to.
at,
That's why I
at least
kept
he
like
wasn't
watching
bringing
the.
you death.
But like they were also telling me that there's a haunted house up here where people used to do rituals where they cut off like chicken heads, and that there's a pentagon in the
A
main floor.
Pentagon, huh?
Pentagon, yeah, that's the worst kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I hate the Pentagon. I hear somebody tried to blow it up once.
Dang it, okay, I realized what I said now. Pentagram.
Yeah, pentagram. That was still
There
pretty
we
funny
go.
though.
Thank you.
We're just gonna bully you until you figure it out. Don't worry.
I appreciate it. Uh,
Well, is
but
it
there's
upside
a
down or
pentagram
is it
on
right
the
side
floor.
up? Does the point face north or does it face south?
I don't know. I
Oh.
haven't seen it. Are you? What does the difference signify? I'm curious.
So pinnacles are used in like pagan practices, like Wicca
Yeah, like Wiccan
and things
stuff,
like
right?
that. Whereas pentagrams are used for more satanic rituals and darker magics, like Santeria, voodoo, things like that. Um, and you know, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to summon something using a pinnacle, and they summon something else using a pentagram. So there's a very
Hmm.
distinct difference. But you know, this is something we should bring up to our mutual friend Etone Cal, because the pinnacle is the perfect shape, and it has 9 pieces when you think about it, and they can all even out. It's kind of cool. But
What are you
So I'm
talking
anywho,
I'm
about?
sure he would probably love to dive down that rabbit hole.
Are you getting into like spiritual geometry and the flower of life type stuff?
Oh.
that's
Is that what we're
essentially what
getting
it is.
into?
So in
Yes, I
witchery,
knew I recognized the the way you were talking about that.
well, see, and that's, you know, the greater and lesser keys of Solomon are fascinating to me because yes, they are used for rituals when it comes to like Christian beliefs or pagan beliefs, but the sacred geometry can also be traced back, as well as the runes can be traced back to alchemy. And alchemy, I think, is such a better explanation for the world than say, you know, traditional pagan theology. Um, because it does take sacred geometry into account, and it does take you know, the raw materials that are within the periodic table into account. I like to think that science explains things that we don't explain, you know? That's why, for me, the concept of energy is so fascinating, because we know as people that energy cannot be dispersed, it can only be displaced, right? You can't break energy down because it's not made up of matter. So who's to say that our soul is not our collective energies?
Hmm.
And who's to say that when we pass, that energy does not carry sentience
Well,
or consciousness?
and that would also be interesting in connection to the idea of the sort of like the cloud mind. So the connection between humans via like the electrical field that's inherent on the earth kind of deal.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the thread that connects every person?
Or you talk, well, um so like just the idea that, well, like I just said, yeah, basically that there's some sort of force or connection that all living things, or maybe even just humans, who knows, like have access to some degree.
Yeah.
That's kind of sort of used to explain like uh the same invention being made across the world in in different places roughly around the same time.
Or the Mandala
Uh,
effect.
yeah, the Mandela effect, stuff like that, where yeah.
All right, hold on. Is it Mandela or Mandala? Because one of them is a really cool pattern, and the other one is a psychological term.
No, Mandela.
Yeah, Mandela
Mandela.
effect.
And it's
Okay.
named that. That's a slightly different. That's more along the like multiverse theory type deal, where history is being kind of like retroactively rewritten to meet uh like a new modern interpretation of history, but it's being done at like a yeah. Anyway, point is, Mandela was the name of an African social leader and then eventually president who spent a lot of time in prison. And
Yeah.
then when he got elected president after he got out, I think, right? And people were amazed because they thought that they had witnessed his death parade. Like it was this big event where he died, and there was national mourning, and it was all over the news. And then they were surprised because later he ended up getting, elected president, and they're like, I thought he was dead, and thus the Mandela effect was born. Yeah. And it's like a collective misremembering, which is why it's so weird. And so yeah, I could see why you'd connect it to the collective consciousness type deal. Nelson Mandela, that's the one. Yeah.
I had to
My
watch a
favorite-
documentary on him in high school. Cool dude.
My
He
favorite
spent most of
Mandela
his time in
quote.
isolation, didn't he? Like reading law books.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how he ended
yeah.
up as president.
Hey, if you're gonna spend your time doing something, you might as well, do that. Especially if you're in prison.
So does anybody remember when Sinbad played a genie?
Oh, yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
I do remember that movie. Yeah, that was crazy.
Everybody calls me crazy because they're like, "Oh no, Sinbad, that was totally Shaq that played a genie." And I was like, "I've never seen Shaq play a genie. I've seen Sinbad play a genie." And
I
like,
saw them both play a genie, and I thought it was
Yeah.
weird because both of the movies came out around the same time, at least for my remembering.
yeah, I was told that was the Mandela effect. I'm like, I kind of remember that pretty well. I mean,
No, yeah, it doesn't exist. Yeah, no. That movie, they made a joke trailer about it, and I swear to fuck, I remember like those scenes in the actual movie, but transposed. Like they had it, it was fucking weird because they had,
Yeah,
I
shit.
think, slightly different kids or whatever, and slightly different because I think there was like a Super Soaker reference or something in the original. I don't remember. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Because that happens a lot in Hollywood. The same idea will get pitched to multiple studios, and sometimes
dude,
the studio will
especially in the
jack it.
90s.
Yeah, oh,
Especially in the
100%. Yeah, and they'll make some alterations and then ship it. So that's what I thought had happened, because that's still a practice going on today. But no, apparently that movie never existed, man. You and I are both crazy.
Well, I mean,
Well, we'd
I know
all
that.
be crazy because I remember it distinctly.
Yeah, I mean, like I can see
Because
like
you had a
this, like,
boombox, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
and like I have
exactly.
this very specific like subway scene like is in my head, but yeah, apparently it never happened.
I remember, didn't he like hit on the mom or something, and he ended up at like being their dad by the end or something weird? Like
I hope so. I don't remember
there
that
was
much,
something.
but
Yeah, I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, no. Apparently we're crazy. Mandela effect.
yeah.
Man,
So I like to think that there's ghosts snitching on people out there. That's pretty cool.
That is an interesting concept. Like, oh, I'm in the afterlife. What am I going to use this power for? Snitching.
That sounds about right.
Shazam! Yeah, that's
I think
right.
I saw like some weird like YouTube duo that like go around and like do like mock like ghost stuff where they'll like it may have been like Vice or something. You know what I'm talking about? It's like one guy who believes in it and the other one's like
Well,
a
BuzzFeed, Unsolved
Yeah.
Cases.
I was about to say,
And
that
they
sounds
went-
like a lot of them.
they went to like the Viper Room and like because I guess like quite a few people died there mysteriously or whatever, and I think they have like some kind of box that like makes random noise. It sounds like you're like switching through like a radio or something.
Yeah,
So
they
what-
call it a
Yeah.
spirit box.
Yeah.
Spirit box, there we go.
Like
Yeah.
they take that and they get like some like really specific responses. They're like, "Did so and so die here?" And they're like,
It makes you wonder if maybe they might have programmed it. Yeah, but just.
I mean, dude, I am very skeptical about the spirit box thing. I mean, I'm no expert, that stuff, the paranormal, but there's way too much like I don't know, like
Well, see, so they
Here-
based the concept of the spirit box off of like people back in the 80s and stuff when there were tube TVs would complain about the fact that they would hear voices in the static, or they would see images within the static. And again, I think that kind of proves that energy really can affect your surroundings in a way that we just don't comprehend, right? Because the way tube TVs were made, you could go and stick a magnet to it and ruin the TV.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've never really thought about it like that. So, like, I guess artifacts that people were seeing, either visual or audio, like made it. I mean, I guess there could be some kind of weird synchronicity there, but I mean, that could also just be like, you know, happenstance, just like, you know.
Yeah.
It also plays off of what she said earlier about like what we talk about being spirits or like leftover energy imprints, and like maybe the TV picks up on a little bit of that.
It's possible because the TV is relying on quantum mechanical interpretations of reality in order to achieve what it does, right? So it's hypothetically possible that if there were some sort of background imprint of those other realities, that it might feed through that mechanism. And it's entirely possible that the digital realm still, still sort of accesses that same sort of reality. Maybe electricity has something to do with it all. Electrons
Maybe.
themselves, or I think we need to know more about how electricity works before we make those sorts of interpretations, though, because it can be hard
Yeah,
to know.
it's all speculation.
Yeah.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? So we know basic understanding of how protons and neutrons will attract to each other, and how each of those goes in to form certain matters and things like that. And with energy, with radio waves or with microwaves or things like that, there is more space between these protons and these electrons to allow for other things to come in and distort that energy field. That's why everybody threw the fit about 5G. But we can move on to something else.
Well, we're talking about like ghosts being able to mess with TVs, but like, what about like physical objects? What would cause a physical object to move? He was talking earlier about how like that heavy door was swung mysteriously. Like how do these things that logically should not move on their own end up somewhere?
Physical objects still interact with the weak and strong nuclear forces, including the magnetic, like responses to. So, I mean, hypothetically speaking, right? Kinetic energy is just a translation of a different energy into motion. So if you can, as an entity existing in this hypothetical electrical plane, as long as you can convert your energy into kinetic energy, you can achieve motion. And you would get a byproduct of probably like a little bit of, well, I guess if you were at a different plane, it actually might exhibit itself as cold, because you would be taking energy from the area in order to accomplish your goal, right? Instead of using your inherent energy as a physical entity to accomplish it.
That's something that
which would generate heat, right?
Don't they talk about like when ghost hunters or whatever they are, like, go to places, they're like, oh, like a big indicator is if like everything gets really cold or the temperature changes in some kind of way or whatever.
Oh, and that could be an explanation for it, because they're having to draw that energy from the surrounding area to accomplish the goal within that frame.
To accomplish manifestation, right?
Right, to manifest it, yeah.
And that's another thing, right? We were talking about objects and, bringing up the subject of manifestation. A big concept that is moving around now due to, everybody reading the book The Secret is that manifestation can will things into existence. So when you have these masses of energy that may or may not contain sentience, they are manifesting their will in order to move objects or in order to become an apparition that you can see. And in turn, we manifest that same energy by feeding into it. The Catholic Church believes that demonic spirits and stuff feed off of fear. So who's to say that, we are not manifesting these things by having fear of the unknown?
Yeah.
And demonic really is an interesting term, because I think that really is an interesting I think realistically a lot of those entities or whatever they aren't necessarily demonic. They're just not a thing that jives with our perspective. Like, it's trying to accomplish a goal that that is against our agenda, so therefore we kind of ascribe evil. But I think that's just the nature of that process. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily, yeah. It's only evil from our perspective. Yeah.
I think that's what's interesting about the Goetia is like you have when you I did a little bit of research years later after messing with it and stuff, trying to figure out why did this stuff happen, and looking at the entities and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of them aren't even necessarily predates Christianity, kind of thing. So it's interesting. So maybe we're King Solomon who wrote the book, he was in the Bible or whatever. Maybe it was just at odds with their beliefs and just got lumped into that. I mean, I have no idea. It's interesting how it's a book of demonology. You know what I mean? What is that necessarily?
Well, and it stands to reason that ancient interpretations of these experiences would come across as the way that they did, right? Because they didn't have the understanding that we think we do now. And I imagine in the future, our ancestors will look back and view us in the same manner.
Yeah.
A lot of our understanding comes from context, right? We have the context of understanding somewhat, nuclear and quantum, hypothetical, experiences, but our ancestors wouldn't have had words for that. They would have had to just call them demons and spirits, and you know what I mean. So who's to say that we're not the ones kind of interpreting these things in our modern lenses without the context of ancient understanding?
I think that's where alchemy is kind of interesting. I've never looked into alchemy. Sounds like you have text, but isn't it kind of like a combination of spiritual but also scientific or metaphysical stuff?
Yeah. So you can consider it like the predate of science, right? It's what led up to us being able to have scientific advances early on. It's a little bit before the time of Galileo, I believe. And
well, if I'm not wrong, wasn't it a part of the Enlightenment? What led up to the Enlightenment?
I would not be able to tell you in full certainty, but I believe so. I'm not an expert on it by any means.
Yeah.
I just know that a lot of pagan theology uses the same runes and the same detail work and sacred geometry that alchemy had. People will use the runes for Mercury or runes for carbon and things like that. Even in Satanism they do that. And when I say Satanism, I mean occultic Satanism, not the Satanic Temple itself.
What? Well,
sorry.
That was the dead silence. No, say what you got to say. Warped.
I was thinking we were talking about these spontaneous things happening, and then I reminded myself about how I learned to juggle.
Oh, tell us how you learned to juggle.
Okay, so this is the picture, right? It was my first like little festival, and I went there. I tried acid for the first time. I was with a group of friends, so I was in a safe space, and I wandered out of camp. Everybody had left me alone for a little bit, and it just started hitting. And I've never tripped before, so I don't know what to expect. But my tendency is to kind of go with things. Um, and I start wandering around, and then I wander like kind of into the woods a little bit. And this is back in Tennessee. And there's this dude there. He's just sorry, my nephew just came up. um, there's this dude there, and he's juggling bowling pins. And the dude looks like Gandalf. He's got the beard, he's got the clothes, the cloak, whatever. He looks like Gandalf. And he's just juggling his stuff. And I'm like, "Are you real?" He goes, "Yeah, I think so." And I sit there, and he's juggling in the morning light, and I'm just staring at him. And I go, "I can do that." He goes, "Yeah, you juggled before?" I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, show me what you got." And he tossed me 3 little juggling balls, little hacky sacks, whatever. And I just started juggling like it was nothing. And
You
then
just unlocked that
I've
part
been
of your
able to juggle
brain.
ever since.
Yeah, you were just ready to go. And man, maybe I should do acid. No, I'm just kidding.
You rolled a
I'm not
20
gonna-
on dexterity at the festival there.
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting what you just said. Like, you unlocked the part of your brain. So all my acid experiences, I've kind of like learned something about myself through each one. Like, I was living in Asheville, North Carolina, where like a lot of the deadhead culture kind of just moved to and sat, in a parking lot for like 30 years and just made crazy psychedelic drugs, to bide their time for the next festival or whatever. I don't know. But like, they were called the Rainbow Mafia, so there's just like a lot of crazy good psychedelic stuff coming through there. I think I was like 15 at the time, and I had a buddy who hooked me up with 2 tabs, and he's like, "Hey, there's 2 tabs. You've never done LSD before. You should probably do it with friends. Uh, don't do it outside." Blah blah. Anyway, I like broke pretty much all the rules and just took it like outside of my house by myself, and it was like a great experience. Like, I was like wandering through my house, and like I think Kindergarten Cop was on TV. Arnold Schwarzenegger and
A controversial movie today.
yeah, I don't doubt that. I guess, but like I was like watching it, and I was just like, visuals are kind of distorted, not too much. I mean, if you've done acid, 2 tabs isn't that crazy, but like then like all of a sudden, like trailing off like in my house, like echoing is like, "Give me the damn cookies," right? And it's Arnold's voice just echoing through my house. So I'm now convinced that Arnold Schwarzenegger is in my house, right? Like, so I go out and I'm trying to find Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like look behind my couch, he's not there, like just going through. I think I eventually like started doing laundry for some reason. And then like that was an experience. Like, I think my parents were home, and like I don't think they even suspected anything. But I remember like, so in Asheville, like they have like bird houses, what they call them. Like there's like these houses like situated on mountains, like super high up, and like just like terrifying looking. But I remember going out to like the back porch area, which was like 60 feet off the ground, because it was like, like it was just like a straight ravine, like below me. And like, I remember like looking up at like this like kind of like indigo sky, and then like looking down like from my back porch, and it looks like it's like 3 feet away from me. And like, I'm like, that's not right. And then just like went back inside and just like, just, I remember like writing something on like paper, and like everything that I wrote would like slowly trail into like whatever I had written. That was pretty cool. But yeah, like I don't know. LSD, I recommend it. I mean, it can get pretty intense, but
As
Yeah, I was
long
gonna
as
say
you're
some people just have the brain for it.
as long as you're a consenting adult who's willing to deal with the ramifications and repercussions of mind-altering drugs. Just
yeah.
a
Oh
So I
little
can,
God, yes.
caveat there for our public.
yeah, I mean, I can give you the bad experience too, kids.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
let's
So,
talk about that. Yeah.
my best
so,
and my worst experience from one time.
like, I guess everybody who does that kind of stuff has the bad experience in their back pocket, right?
Yeah, like the proverbial ego death, quote unquote.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like really socially anxious at that point in time because high school and stuff like that, right? Like what kid isn't, I guess, in a way. But I got that same friend, you know, and he was like, "Hey, here's 3 tabs, right? You graduated, right?"
Oh.
And it actually ended up being more than 3 because like the Rainbow Mafia people had created like they were like these gelatin caps, and like when you had them or whatever, they looked really cool. They were like this like almost like neon yellow, but like transparent, kind of like you could see the fluid in them or whatever. And they ended up being double blotters, so I took 6 hits of acid, not 3. And yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
remember being on the phone with my girlfriend, and I was playing guitar, and I could see like the musical notes coming out of my amp, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And like, things were definitely getting hazy at that point. But like, I remember like I was like in this basement area at the time. It was like refinished into like a room, and I was like looking at the walls, and there were pulsing veins, right? Like, and it was like almost like just like this circulatory thing, just like going through the walls, and um, that would usually be a creepy thing, but for some reason it was like really calming to me, and that's where I was kind of talking about like how LSD can give you like this kind of introspective like thing afterwards. Like it kind of like registered with me like after I'd like like evaluated this trip or whatever. But like I guess like being inside was like super like safe for me, and it was almost like I was in this like living organism or something. And I don't know, but like I remember going to the bathroom, and like LSD tends to make you kind of sweaty and hot, so I remember like getting some water from the sink to like splash my face, and it looked like blood, right? But
Oh.
again, this did not creep me out. It did not creep me out at the time. I was like, oh, but that's not real. You know what I mean? So just like put water on my face. Everything was cool. But then like LSD comes in waves, right? So you take it, and there's like this like internal kind of thing that you're feeling. It's like very I don't know. It's like an electric current or something, and it just keeps getting like progressively more intense, and then it'll like come back, right? Kind of like a wave, like back and forth. So,
Do you ever, like tense up your muscles?
oh yeah,
Like, do you
oh yeah,
always? Yeah.
oh
Like
yeah.
for me, it's my jaw, and I get stuck with this like psycho smile on my face, and it's not cute. It's not cute.
It's funny that like every time like I've done like LSD around people, like they never know I'm on it. So I don't know if I always just seem crazy or what, but yeah, like I know what you're talking about, like the jaw thing. I think everybody has that to a degree. That's why you'll see like people at festivals like chewing gum or like sucking on a sucker or whatever. Or pacifiers are like a big thing in like the late '90s. I don't know, but like so like I like like trying to go back upstairs, and like then it just like hit me all at once, and it was really intense. Like I was no longer like in myself, I guess. Like it's almost like people describe astral projection. It was kind of something like that. I saw this like massive thing, like that was made out of like everything. Like I can give you like a few examples of what I saw, but it was like buildings and like traffic lights and like I don't know, like trees and, you know, like just all these like very like weird details of like things that like I guess you accumulate and see and just kind of like take for granted or whatever. And I remember like in my mind I was like, oh, this like must be God or whatever, right? And it really creeped me out. It was not fun. It was like I was just like super anxious and like afraid, and like I would come back to in waves. It was almost like I blacked out or something. And I was like crawling up my stairs. Like as I was crawling up my stairs, I'll never forget this. There was like these like hands that were like coming out of like the wall. That like they were like green plant fiber like hands, and they were like kind of just like doing this like weird thing. They were like had like red nails at the end, and just kind of like almost like, you know, if you look at like brain like blowing in the wind, it was just kind of like that, you know, coming out of the wall. And I had like crawled up my stairs up into like this like room that had a computer and like a futon and a fan, and I was trying to get to the fan because it was still super hot. And I remember laying on the futon and just like sitting there with the fan on, and I remember looking down at my Converse, and I was like, I'll be okay because my shoes are tied. That's like the kind of logic you have on acid.
Yeah.
And but so like in my trip I was like in this like, now I'm in a field like again like I like, you know, like go out of my mind, right? Like I'm transported somewhere else, and I'm under this like purple sky with like this like phosphorescent sun or something, and like I'm like underneath this tree, and I'm like looking up at the sun and I'm talking to it. And then like after the trip I figured out that I was actually talking to my girlfriend on the phone. So it's like this, and it was like at the time I was like really into this girl, and like I kind of just like after the trip kind of like, you know, made this discovery like, oh, she was like really important to me. She was like the sun or whatever, you know. So like I feel like there's like these weird introspective things that you get from acid, you know, but it can also just be like really terrifying. And, you know, I don't know, it's like a trip inside yourself, right?
Yeah, it can be. It just depends on how in your head you get. Because I know that in some, like if you're tripping acid and you're the kind of person that can handle going into like a club scenario while on acid, you're crazy. First of all, sorry, but you're crazy. Um, like there's just so much distraction going on. You can't get into those thoughts. Like maybe the reason they can handle it is because there's so much distraction going on. They aren't even noticing how they're feeling.
So yeah, I did acid at a festival once. But it wasn't really a festival.
Oh.
It was. You said you're from Tennessee. Do you know where Culpeper is?
Do you know where? Never mind. I don't know where that is.
Yeah, careful.
Yeah.
We are live. I mean.
Oh, right. So anyway, there's this place called Culpeper in Virginia, and like I'd gone to see like this. It was like a small festival. It was like a bunch of like this band like threw it, and they were like their house was like right next to it, and it was just like kind of like this cheesy event where it was like they put it on just to be like the main act. You know what I mean? So I was super bored, and there was a shaman there, right? It was the first shaman I ever met. And he was like, hey, here, take this. And he like gave me acid for free. And I was bored enough to like try that. And I was there with like several other friends, and like me and this other guy, Corey, took it, and like I don't know if it was just acid, to be honest with you, because like I completely blacked out on this stuff, and I had woken up the next day underneath a car, and I feel like I'd been beat up, right? So I like crawl out from underneath this car, and like I'm like looking for people, you know, like my people. I found them eventually. They were in this like tent area on the side of this hill, and I was like, hey, what happened? They're like, oh boy. I had apparently done some like really mischievous things that I had no idea that I did, but so I guess that band played. It like had the house there and stuff. And I had, I guess, got on stage. This is before Will Smith, but apparently I was like messing with their guitar amplifiers. And like I guess like the lead singer like went to like make me stop, and like I guess like I punched him in the face, and like so that caused like a huge commotion. I guess some people from like the crowd like got up and like kind of beat me up and like kicked me out or whatever, and my girlfriend at the time said that like people were like stomping on me because like I guess like I had been like taken off the stage, and yeah, like so I guess in between that time I had like worked my way over to the parking lot and like laid under a car. Yeah, so there's another side of psychedelics for you.
Nice.
I almost broke my neck taking shrooms.
That sounds like a story.
Yeah, well, let's hear about this. Yeah. Shrooms, huh? Okay.
Yeah. So it was during pandemic time, and I was bored at home and my husband was bored at home, and we had the wise idea to take a shit ton of shrooms. I'm talking like we took 6 grams a piece of shrooms.
Isn't an eighth a serving?
Yeah, 3.5. Like they tell you if you've never done shrooms to start at like 1.75, right? And we made the mistake because they tell you that with shrooms, the trip can last 8 to 10 hours roughly, right? So we each took 3 grams, and I thought that I read the clock, and I guess I read the clock wrong. And so we thought we were coming down, but really we were just going in a downward wave because, with psychedelics, there's waves to it. Yeah. So while we were in a down wave, we took another 3, not thinking about the first 3 that we took. And then we peaked, and then we peaked again. So the first peak that I had was I was taking a bath because I wanted to just kind of mellow out and get in the right mindset for when I did start to peak. And I just remember I turned my light to red because I had one of those LED lights that you can change the color on in the bathroom because I'm a weirdo. And so I had changed it to like a purple or pink or whatever. And for some reason, it went red. And I remember just sitting in the bathtub, and I start seeing the wall start to bubble out towards me. And I'm like, okay, that's shady, whatever. Trip me out, get out of the bathtub, go to eat popsicles. And these popsicles, I don't know what it is, eating popsicles when you're on shrooms. I guess maybe next time when you take acid, you should try it too. But it's the most delicious thing in the world when you're tripping absolute balls. And so I go to pop my neck, because I'm old and I'm crickety. And I popped my neck, and I was like, oh, that felt good. So I popped it a second time, and I was like, ooh, that felt even better. And then I went to pop it a third time, and I hear crick, crick, crick. And I felt my head shift in a way that I never felt before. And I was like, oh, snap. I almost just broke my own neck because when you're high, you don't really have a sense of your body when it comes down to shrooms, So.
I think it's pretty cool. I know what you're talking about. And so I feel like when you're on psychedelics and you're tripping, I feel like things get amplified. You know what I mean? Like if any sensation that you're used to kind of gets like whenever, because the waves, right? I feel like
right.
Whenever it hits just right, like if I were to stub my toe on acid, right, and like it happens to be at that right moment where I'm like going up, or whatever, it would probably feel like I just like lost my leg or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, but it's also interesting because I've heard people talk about tripping and also like the whole like, so there's like a common thing. I don't know if this is true. I've never experienced it, and I crack my neck quite often. But like, so like whenever you do those things or whatever, like there's always a relapse. You know, like sometime after you might have like a short visual or like you know.
Yeah, it's like it shoots another dose of it up into your brain.
Yeah, they claim that. Yeah, and I've never had that myself. I mean, I've had relapses, but I mean, it was nothing like too crazy or anything like that. Like I saw a tree outside my grandparents' house, and it just like had the shutter effect with the leaves. You know what I mean? Where it's like trails, like were blowing in the wind, but it looks like there's just like a million more leaves or something. But yeah.
I remember coming out of the shower and the apartment was painted gray.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still holding that sense of like, okay, this is my consciousness. Like, I was still processing things at the time.
Yeah.
And I could not fathom logically why everything looked lime green to me.
Yeah. That's the thing with shrooms that is kind of, I think it's absent in LSD, but like with shrooms, I feel like there's a lot of like color vibrance and like stuff like that. I've only taken shrooms once, but the time that I did, it was kind of the opposite effect. It was like I was looking through like a grainy camera. Everything was like super pixelated.
Yeah.
I had a horrible time on shrooms. Like I took an eighth. That's like what you're supposed to, or whatever. At least I was told that. I don't know, but I just got like super sick to my stomach. Like my stomach just hurt really bad, and
and you could not poop. I don't know what it is about being on shrooms, but you cannot physically poop when you're on shrooms. I don't know if y'all know
That's
that.
Really? No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
dry,
like
huh?
you're constipated and you can't do anything about it. Yeah, but
wow.
I didn't even have a lot of visuals either. Like I thought that I had saw a crucifix in my friend's yard, and that was like pretty much it. But like my buddy, I mean, he also took it at the time, and he was gone. I remember he was like he had his hands in like a this thing. And he was like,
yeah.
I was like, Lee, are you feeling anything? He's like, crab, Pete, crab, Pete, crab. Dude, he was gone. I don't know. Like I was having normal conversations about Pink Floyd with this like
so
other
for
guy.
Everybody, he can't. So nobody on the podcast can see the camera, but yeah. So he's put his hand into a kind of a crab-like, shape, and he was saying crab what?
Crab people. He just kept repeating
crab people. All right, well. Crab people. What can I say?
It reminds me of that one video where the cops come to a house call and the guy's just like raging on shrooms and he's like, "Is it gonna die?"
Yeah, that whole party that I was at that day was just super weird as well. So I probably wasn't able to trip because there's other things going on, but
I will say with shrooms, I'm sorry not to.
You're good. You're good.
But with shrooms, I definitely learned the hard way that you have to do it with people that you're comfortable with. You definitely do, because in the middle of having those 6 grams of shrooms, our neighbor came over unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Oh, no!
And so we're vibing, right? Like me and my husband, we're vibing. We're having like deep conversations, and we're watching this fractal video on YouTube in 4K. Just fucking chilling. And he came in, and I guess he had an argument with one of his friends or his girlfriend or something, but his vibe was so off-putting. And I finally, I got so anxious and so terrified. I was like, hey, please don't take this wrong, but I need you to leave. And he was like, what? And I was like, I'm tripping balls, and your energy is not right for me right now, man. And then my husband gets up and he starts panicking. because the vibe changed in the room, the atmosphere changed, you know? And my husband blacked out. He was like, I think I'm dying. And he blacked
Ooh.
out. And I
Wow.
freaked out. And you know, the neighbor's like, should we call the cops? Should we call an ambulance? I was like, I don't know. So I just go and I get water and I dump like this pitcher of water on my husband, and he snaps out of it and is like, and so I have to carry this fucking high motherfucker up the stairs on my back into the bathtub and run him a bath and like chill him out, you know, and it was bad. I thought he was gonna die. Oh my god, it was the worst experience I ever had in my life. Do not do shrooms with people that you do not, you know, vibe with deeply, because you
I
will
would say
fuck yourself up.
100% that is a general number one, or at least top 5 rule of thumb for any psychedelic.
Well, yeah, but you know, this was only our second time taking shrooms.
Yeah.
You guys took so much.
We took
Yeah,
so
I'm
many.
feeling jealous. I've never gotten to take either of those.
And we did everything wrong, right? Like, we forgot to drink a lot of water. We forgot to eat.
No.
We were
Wait, you're
told,
supposed to
you know,
eat and drink water? What?
well, we were told, you know, if you want to make the high better, that you should fast for a certain amount of time before you take them. But since we
Okay.
took them twice, we fasted twice.
Right?
And all that time, I don't think either one of us even finished a single bottle of water. And so we're dehydrated, we're tripping balls, we have a bad vibe, and we're hungry.
Oh no.
I mean,
that
call me
seems
weird, but call me weird, but I kind of like the weird occurrences that happen when you're tripping. You know what I mean? Like the off-putting things. You know, like I don't know. I think it's like evidence of like, because I feel like when you're tripping, you have like a deeper intuition of things. You know, like everything just like gets so like more intense.
I will be the first to admit that that particular trip with shrooms gave me severe PTSD and lasting issues with anxiety.
wow.
I have become a lot more shut off and, you know, bit less prone to wanting to go out or be around people or even like smoke weed. Like, I can't even smoke weed now without having anxiety attacks.
Yeah. I'm already like a naturally anxious person. Like I was anxious before I did all of this stuff. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, but you know, one thing that actually brings you out of anxiety and like, have you guys ever done MDMA?
I did,
MDMA.
and
Tell us
all
what
it did was
MDMA
make
is.
me insomniac, and I drew for like 16 hours straight on MDMA.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
well,
it was great.
Tell us what MDMA is first for the people listening.
Oh, ecstasy.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a pretty cool story. I'll be right back though. I'll get into that in just a second. I have to go do something.
I've not tried MDMA, but I've done DMT.
DMT is pretty good.
I would recommend it for somebody who has tripped enough and absolutely 10,000% trusts their resource, and their resource is resource. Because your friend can mean well and then get you something bad for you.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough that I ended up with a friend that I trusted their source, who was willing to share with me. It's a very, very short trip. Like, you trip, the afterglow is maybe like 30 minutes, and then you're good. You can go back to work. You feel absolutely normal. Like, you could do it in a break.
It's short-lived like cocaine, huh?
But it's super strong, and there's, at least like me seeing things, I mentioned that earlier, that used to happen before I did any drugs. So, like, I know it's not that. People are probably going to hear me talk about this now and probably come to the conclusion, oh, it's because she did the drugs. No, that's not why. But depending on like what you do, I would say you're like even the difference of like having your eyes open versus your eyes shut, like it's definitely a sitting down experience just because like it's already so short. You want to be able to enjoy it while you can, and the less you're focusing on your body, the more you're able to focus on what you're seeing. Which that's most of the effect is you seeing things and hearing things sometimes. Um, but I've seen like a massive spider that reached its hand out to me. I thought that was really cool. I saw this. I saw trees turn into little geometric shapes and pulse in time to this music that was playing, and it like my interpretation of that was that I was seeing the Earth's rotation, and it just happened to be pulsing in time to the music behind me, which yeah, and
Very, very interesting interpretation. Yeah.
well, that's what it looks like at the time. Because
Yeah.
it was just like all the shapes started coming at me, and then whenever I turned my head, I realized they were just going past me. And then I looked all around, and it's like everything's moving that way, no matter how I orient
Oh
myself.
yeah, so you have like some connection to some kind of motion. So that's like, yeah, that's the kind of like tripping logic I love. You know what I mean? Like, it's really cool. So like, what was this? Sorry, I wasn't around.
Sorry, we were talking. I said I haven't ever done MDMA, but I have done DMT a few times.
Oh yeah, no, that's like a whole different animal. Isn't that dispensed into your brain like upon death or something? Like the chemical?
That's what your brain
Yeah.
heads with. Babies and cats, their brains are full of it.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Oh.
So, huh.
Yeah, so think about that next time you see an infant staring at you with a weird dumb face.
Yeah.
Because they're tripping on MDMA.
That explains the expressions that some babies have. Yeah.
And well, there's also the fact that their vision is doesn't fully come through, like it's blurry until a certain point.
Yeah.
I just like
So
to think they're tripping.
usually they're like, whoa, for the first while.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to ponder. Do you feel like the reason children tend to see things more so than we do is because their body still has elevated levels of DMT or MDMA in their system? You know, just naturally?
Personally, I feel that my view on that is the opposite, where adults have less creativity than they used to as children because the creativity has been sucked out of them by today's society.
Fair.
Probably, yeah. Sure. I see that, yeah. That's kind of interesting. That just kind of brought something else into my mind. Like, so, like, forever ago, people used to, like, worship people with, like, schizophrenia and stuff like that, you know? Because, I mean, if you look at, like, schizophrenia, it's almost like a natural trip, you know what I mean? Just, like, all the time.
Yeah, an unfortunate one at that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, but, you know, there's also been, like, a lot of, like, debate of like whether or not it's like not like a prophetic thing, you know, like, or can induce, you know, some kind of visions or whatever, you know.
Yeah, because if you're, let's say hypothetically, our brains do have access to some sort of weird hive mind or some, I'll just call it hive mind for now. Then schizophrenia would be the like. It could hypothetically represent some sort of either disrupted connection or hyper connection, where you're seeing too much, where things are coming in too well, like hearing the voices and stuff. That could be just like too sensitive to the signal or something, or misinterpretation of the signal even. And that could be brain, or that could be connected to the greater bit. But yeah, all right. So yeah, what a rabbit hole we've fallen down, eh?
Yeah, it's great.
Well, we didn't even get to the MDMA.
MDMA, yeah, no joke.
Oh yeah. You guys still with that story, or?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Real quick, I am gonna have to hop off.
Thank you. Thank you
But
for
thanks
joining
for
us,
having me
Tex.
on the show, and
Yeah,
hopefully
it's
I
been
can
fun.
stay a little later next time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, we look forward to having you back on soon.
Thank you.
It's good seeing you again.
You too. Y'all have a good night, and
Nice to meet you.
you as well. Okay. Goodbye, y'all.
Bye.
And then there were 3.
Dun, dun, dun.
No, but I'm really
Yes.
glad that Lex came on today. We got some interesting stories out of her before she had to go. Hopefully she'll be back on and we can get some more.
Yeah, like the snitching ghost. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was epic. Yeah. So either
Like
way,
if you're afraid of being surveilled before, I mean,
yeah, now you've really got to worry about it.
there's 2 planes of existence you have to worry about, right?
That's why you're always feeling watched.
Right.
There's always a snitch ghost.
Yep, and if it's not a ghost, it's a drone from the government disguised as a bird.
Birds
Or
aren't
you-
real.
Yep.
No, they're
Birds aren't real.
They've got all our phones tapped. They've got bird drones, and now they've got ghosts. Man, it's literally you can't escape it.
Oh.
Now we're gonna, man, Big Brother just keeps evolving.
They hired you.
Fuck. Well, I mean, technically, right? Didn't the government do research into remote viewing?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
LSD kind of came out of the government, man. Like the whole MK Ultra. I mean, to be fair, like I think they popularized it, but I guess it was like I forgot who was behind LSD. It was like some German, I think German, like professor or something. Kind of like was messing around with rye and kind of like figured it out. So he'd like do it on his bicycle and stuff like that. But yeah, like the MK Ultra stuff. I mean, that was like essentially like wasn't that the CIA like trying to like harness some kind of mind control thing?
They gave acid
Yeah.
to a dolphin.
Yeah.
And recorded. Oh, and didn't they like blare messages and these headsets that they made them wear, these helmets or whatever? And sometimes they'd tell them positive things for certain people, and then other people they'd tell them all negative things, and they just gauge their reactions. Yeah, and it was real fucked up shit too. It was like your mother never loved you and shit like that, like on repeat for 8 hours. And yeah, like
That'd be terrible. Yeah, MDMA, right? So I was kind of like illegally staying with a buddy of mine in college. He just kind of like lived at his dorm for a little while, and we went to 7-Eleven, and there's this guy like at 7-Eleven just kind of like hanging out. He looked like a really cool guy, so we talked to him. And long story short, we ended up getting some MDMA off of him, and like that was pretty cool. We went back to the dorm, took it, you know, and like there's like this like huge warmth like with MDMA. It's intense. Like you're just overloaded hot all the time. So like we stocked up on water and just like chugged it the whole time. Because I guess you have to, man. Because I think you could like seriously like combust on that stuff or something.
Your brain is the temperature regulation of your brain gets shut off, and so yeah, your body starts overheating slowly.
Yeah. So chugging water. It's like winter too, so I guess perfect time to do it. But
that's why you should drink orange juice while doing MDMA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I hear orange juice also works with acid.
I thought that was not. I thought that was grapefruit juice because grapefruit juice.
I think
has
it's
well, your citric acid in general.
Citric
right?
acid. There we go.
Yeah.
I thought it was only exclusive to like grapefruit juice because like grapefruit juice has that enzyme in it that slows your digestional tract. So like if you want to prolong like anything.
I'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
First time I heard it.
Yeah.
I don't have my computer with me. So.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm gonna be straightforward with you. I think grapefruits taste nasty.
100%. But I mean,
If you're
you
gonna
want to,
do it, yeah.
yeah,
I was craving it the other day. I ended up eating a whole grapefruit.
really?
Yep.
Just
I
like
put salt on it and ate it with a spoon.
Oh
salt,
yeah.
you
I mean,
said?
you modified it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like just plain grapefruit. That's like a chore.
I've
Yeah, that's a
been
task.
eating a lot of
Yeah.
lemons too.
Lemons. Oh, I
Salt
love
lemons.
lemons. Lately, I've been. Now we're really getting off topic. So lately, I've been having homemade lime cookies, key lime cookies
Oh, that sounds
with
so.
with key lime frosting. Yeah.
Oh,
You
what
want to
is it
talk
with the
about
really
elevating to
heavy
another plane of
frosting?
existence? That's it right there. I don't need no
Yeah, there you
drugs.
go.
I got key lime
Limes.
cookies. Yeah.
There's a lot of psychedelic imagery with
And
limes.
the only side effect is obesity.
I think I might go get stuff to make key lime pie tonight.
Oh
Nice.
yeah. Let me tell you. Careful about adding too much zest to the actual
Yeah.
the core. Yeah, I'm not gonna give you too many cooking tips on our show here, but yeah, no, we'll discuss that later. Anyway, so yeah. What other story? Did you say you had another story about MDMA, or did we?
Oh no, still on that story. So we went back
Okay,
to
yeah.
the dorm and took it or whatever. And I guess you're not supposed to snort it, which I didn't know. And did that, and immediately had a nosebleed. So that was interesting. Yeah, I thought like I pretty much botched the whole experience, but I guess it didn't. And yeah, like super hot. We were playing Halo 3, like when it like was kicking in or whatever, and like kind of like discovered like when you get shot in Halo, like your controller vibrates or whatever. So like whenever it vibrated, it feels really good. So I just like went out of my way to like just like get shot or like like just like put grenades on myself and just like run out and do whatever. It's like an Xbox Live session, and I just like didn't do anything but die. And yeah, then like we kind of decided to like go outside since everybody was like getting so hot and it was winter. So we went for a walk and it was great. Like all anxiety gone. Like no social anxiety whatsoever. Like we like came across this other group of people that were just kind of like wondering about too. I was like, hey, can you guys rub my head? Something I would never ask sober.
Yeah.
And it was actually like a great experience. All these random people would like rub my head and it felt great. And I'm just like, oh yeah, nice to meet you. Like, hey, what are you guys doing? Just like small talk and stuff and just like go on my merry way. Like we skateboarded a little bit. I mean, it was great. I don't know. I didn't see really.
Skateboard, yeah. Were you a bit of a skater?
Oh yeah.
He was a skater boy.
Yeah, no, I skateboarded a lot, man. But like, just all in all, like a really cool experience. It was just like kind of like the cure-all for social anxiety, I guess. But probably not the safest thing to do. I wouldn't probably like do it now. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, you come off as a real punk. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I guess, yeah.
that's your whole
Rapscallion.
that's your whole vibe. Like,
Scallywag.
you're not ill-meaning, you're just counterculture.
I'm just natural count. Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, like that was pretty much it. I think we just like went back to the dorm and crashed, but pretty cool. Just like meeting people, asking them to rub your head, and small talk, fun times.
Yeah, man. Wow. Well, my my only real like experiences, I guess, that I can talk about was like, well, way back in the day, before I even went active duty, I was hanging out with a guy, and his family was letting me like live at their house for a bit. And long story, right? But the point is, he was pothead, you know, and I had never really smoked before, but we used to go out to this RV that he had, and we'd light up, you know, and chill, hang out, listen to music, you know, talk about shit, whatever. Well, while I was living there, this litter of kittens was born, and one of the kittens wasn't doing great, so we brought it in, and I actually ended up kind of taking care of it, you know, giving it milk, or well, it wasn't milk, it was like something, I don't remember what we were giving it, but I was
Like
feeding it.
formula?
I was making sure it was gonna live, you know, kind of shit. And after a while, I kind of started bringing it with me into that RV to like hang out. And it would come and it'd meow and whatever, and eventually it was able to like walk and climb around stuff, you know. And one day I took a hit, and the cat kind of walked up to me and meowed at me, and like it was kind of, you know, sniffing at the air. And don't do this, kids. I cupped its face and I like blew into it a bit, and the cat like kind of teetered a little bit, and then it curled up next to my leg and just like fucking passed out, went to sleep. And I thought it was kind of cute, like whatever, okay, cool. And from that day forward, we couldn't even walk toward the RV without that cat sprinting towards us at Mach 10, meowing its head off, trying to join us, you know?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was taking that cat everywhere with me, man. I went to Walmart one time, and it stood on my shoulder, like laid across my shoulders, and just chilled with me, helped me pick out some stuff, you know, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was like, hey, get that catnip.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
The second you said you started making sure that it wasn't gonna die, I was over here thinking he just adopted a cat.
Yeah. And
Great
unfortunately, my another dude, the boyfriend of the sister of the guy that I was staying with, he killed my cat, man. But,
What?
yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much, but yeah, pretty fucking sad about that shit. It do be what it do be. This wasn't really too much about the weed. This ended up being more about the cat, but like, yeah, good stoner cat vibes.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was a long time ago, man.
I actually helped out with a litter that had one of those cats in it. Little stoner cat. His name was Dank.
Dank the stoner cat.
Yeah, and he was a little tabby cat, and he had bright. Shoot, it's been so long. I just remember his eyes being like super, super vibrant and bright. I can't remember if they were like gold, green, or blue. But they were like stupid bright. He had awesome eyes. And we couldn't light up in the house. He'd run. He'd meow outside the door.
Oh yeah.
So we started using him to signify that it was time to light. Because like before, it was like, you know, you make a bird call across the house, and everybody who wanted in would make a bird call back, or whatever. You know, Marco Polo, Cheech Chong, whatever you wanted, whatever your local thing. I've realized that all these things are like localized. But we had started using him to signal like it was time, because you'd hear him go across the house.
Nice.
He didn't make it either. He ended up being poisoned by his owner's neighbor.
What?
Yeah. It's crazy too, like you hear about like the cats that do drugs die early, but like they're not really dying so much as being murdered.
Yeah.
Well,
But I
oh,
kept
sorry, go ahead.
2 out of it. Sorry.
You kept
No,
2?
there were like 5 kittens, and there were 5 people in the friend group, so everybody got one.
Oh, wow, that's perfect.
And
Yeah.
since I like had the parents, they weren't my cats. They got left with me, and they weren't fixed. So
Oh,
obviously they're
yeah.
gonna end up, yeah.
Preggers,
And
yeah.
so I was kind of like, since I had pretty much taken on the role of taking care of the cats, I like had to go and make sure everybody got their shots, and then I had my friends pay me back for them, and then like I was like, hey, have you done this with it yet? Are they doing this yet? Like
Yeah.
I ended up having to take care of like 5 cats, but it was all right. Everybody was real cool about it.
Yes.
That was it. We started talking about cats. Now I'm on cats. I could actually sit here and talk for hours about all the cats that I've had and what I've had to go through with them.
Well, I think maybe we'll do that in the after show when we hang out in the Discord lobby, which is where anybody listening here can go to if you check out the links below, and then you can share your stories there, be it about ghosts or psychedelics. And hey, get a chance to maybe even appear on the show. But that being said, I think it's a natural segue into ending it here. What do y'all say?
Yeah.
All right. Well then, other than yeah, I've been to Tone, and
It's been your boy.
And
they've
I'm
been
Rayon.
yeah, there we go. And together we've been Anthropic Topic. Thank you for tuning in, and we should see you possibly next Wednesday, but we're doing a little bit of revamping of everything. We've got some behind the scenes stuff being worked out and worked on, so we'll be sure to post a schedule if anything changes.